Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the TBT Sportscast episode 1. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the latest around the NFL, the NBA, and also the MLB. So, hope you guys will enjoy this little stream. And let's get into it. So, let's start off with the latest NFL news. So, first of all, one of the biggest headlines from today was that Larry Fitzgerald is still undecided about a return to the NFL. According to ESPN, Larry Fitzgerald told Adam Schefter in text that he is taking time to collect his thoughts after a season in which the Cardinals finished with the #1 pick, and the Cardinals have also added a new head coach in terms of Cliff Kingsbury. And honestly, I mean, Larry Fitzgerald has been a legend. He has been a legend for such a long time. I don't know why he'd want to come back personally. I think that if I were him, I would leave it. I would leave the NFL. I would take your retirement. No doubt going to be a Hall of Famer. And I just think Larry Fitzgerald personally, he should just take his ball and go home because he's done enough in the NFL. He doesn't need another season where if he plays down, that would be his last season. And let's face it, the Cardinals are not close to making the playoffs. So, honestly, looking at it, I'm hoping that Larry Fitzgerald does go into retirement, and I don't think he should return in 2019. That's what I think about it. Now, the Cardinals, although they're going to be having a very promising future in terms of having the #1 pick, there's actually something going around that said that they could possibly take the Oklahoma Sooners quarterback, Kyler Murray, a recent Heisman Trophy winner, with the #1 overall pick, and then trade Josh Rosen to the Giants to try to get Odell Beckham Jr. Honestly, looking at that, that could be a decent trade because Josh Rosen is a very young guy, and honestly, he has the biggest bust potential in the draft, in that draft class where they had Mayfield, Darnold, Allen, and obviously Rosen. I think that he probably has he's the lowest out of all the 4 quarterbacks, and honestly, I'd say that would actually be not bad because Kyler Murray is a great athlete. He can throw the ball. He had a great season, and he won the Heisman Trophy. That just proves, I mean, look at what Lamar Jackson's doing this season with the Ravens. I mean, he took the Ravens from a bad team when Joe Flacco was starting to a playoff team. And honestly, I mean, looking at it, I would definitely try and see if you can take Kyler Murray with the #1 overall pick in the draft and then possibly trade Josh Rosen to get Odell Beckham Jr. or another star player, because honestly, the Cardinals need a lot of help, and maybe in the offseason they can make some big signings. But, I mean, I think that it would be a great idea for the Cardinals to explore options about that and see what maybe you can get with Josh Rosen and maybe throw in another player and maybe a pick. You could get a superstar player and then add that to your team, and then maybe in free agency you can start getting new players to your team. And yeah, I think if they can improve on like the offensive line, if they can improve somewhat in the secondary, the defensive line, just improve, and or they can go with the safe route and they can pick Nick Bosa with the #1 overall pick and pair Chandler Jones and Nick Bosa up. I mean, I think that'll be a decent pairing, but I still would take my chances with trying to take Kyler Murray with the #1 overall pick and then trading Josh Rosen and maybe another player and a pick for a superstar player such as Odell Beckham Jr. and just in a position that you need help. I think that could be a very, very decent trade. The Giants need a quarterback, so yeah, that's pretty much what I think about it. And I mean, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see till draft day. And also, Larry Fitzgerald, just stay retired, All right, so the next bit of news that we got last night, it was actually breaking news. It was the Dolphins are hoping to hire the Patriots linebacking coach, Brian Flores, as their new head coach. And they recently fired Adam Gase, who actually went to their AFC East rivals, the Jets. Honestly, I think it's a decent hiring, because the Dolphins didn't really have the best team when Adam Gase was there. And they really wanted Gase to try and mold Ryan Tannehill into the franchise quarterback that he could be. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. So a casualty was Adam Gase. But now in the Jets, maybe you can help with the development of Sam Darnold. And I think also Fred Kitchens, he's also the new head coach of the Browns, I believe. So that might actually that's good for Baker Mayfield. And Vic Fangio got hired by the Broncos. Then again, I mean, it's a solid hire. Honestly, though, like, coordinators, here's the thing. Coordinators in the NFL, if you hire them as a head coach, like, for example, a great example of this is Norv Turner. He was a fantastic coordinator with a bunch of teams. But the head coaching gig didn't work out. There's some coaches who... There are some people in organizations in the NFL that are more molded to be a coordinator, and there's people who can start as a coordinator but eventually move up to being a head coach. It's just the way it works. Some coordinators are not molded to be head coaches, others are, and that's just my take on it. And I mean, it's shown. There's been multiple coordinators. Like, another good example was Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles was an incredible coordinator down in Arizona, and the Cardinals made the playoffs both seasons with him and Arians running the show. But then he went to the New York Jets, and it wasn't good, man. He went to the New York Jets, and the season, they just took a nosedive. You know, they weren't a really popular team. So, I mean, that's just my final point. And I don't know about these coordinators, man, and especially this linebacker coach. Now, the reason the Dolphins were hiring this linebacker coach, he was actually one of the first people they interviewed after firing Adam Gase. But one of the reasons they really liked this linebacker coach from the Patriots is because of his leadership ability and also his relationship with the GM. The GM, who is Chris Greer of the Dolphins. And no deal has been reached yet, but they're really hoping to hire him. Honestly, good luck, Brian Flores. You know, I am a Patriots fan. Good luck to you. Hopefully you can make a killing down in Miami, but honestly, looking at it, I don't know how it's going to work out, because once again, there's some people in organizations who are molded to be head coaches, others are molded to be coordinators, and then others are molded to be position coaches. That's just how it is. They're meant to be there. And all I got to say is, you know what? Good luck, Brian Flores. Hopefully you can do good down in Miami. Next story here was Gary Kubiak, who has been around the NFL. He is reportedly not going to be a part of Vic Fangio's staff. Vic Fangio, obviously former defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears, who made the playoffs this year. I believe they also won the NFC North. Now he is the head coach of the Denver Broncos. And there's the report came out saying that Gary Kubiak will not be a part of Vic Fangio's staff. They actually just hired Chuck Pagano a couple days ago as the defensive coordinator, I believe, for the Denver Broncos. So a lot of other coaches also, I believe Todd Bowles went down to Tampa Bay to be with Bruce Arians. And Todd Bowles is going to be a defensive coordinator. I think that will really work out. And, so... Chuck Pagano is the defensive coordinator of the Broncos now. However, Jacksonville is interested in adding Kubiak to its staff. Honestly, Gary Kubiak, he had some good years, he had some bad years, and hopefully he can, have a little bit of a career revival. We just don't know yet. We're going to have to wait and see on that situation that is currently developing. We're going to see where Kubiak lands and all these other coaches. Next, in the final story for the NFL, was Antonio Brown. He has been on the ropes with the Steelers, and I believe he's demanded a trade, and he's going to address the Steelers drama at a later time. He basically said in an interview that he's going to kind of hold it off and take it professionally. Honestly, the Steelers, if they could somehow trade Antonio Brown, now they're going to have some dead cap space if they trade him. Probably, I don't know how much the sum is, but it's definitely in the millions. It's probably anywhere between 5 to 15 million that they'll have in dead cap room if they do, in fact, trade Antonio Brown. But honestly, they could get so much for Antonio Brown because Antonio Brown is such a great talent in the NFL. One of the best, if not the best, wide receivers right now in the NFL. The guy is absolutely insane. He can make magic with his hands. I mean, the guy is flat out incredible. Now, the biggest thing for Brown is he can succeed with a the biggest thing we got to see from Antonio Brown is, can he succeed with a different quarterback throwing to him? Because Larry Fitzgerald did it when he had guys like, I believe, Carson Palmer was throwing to Fitzgerald. He had Josh Rosen this season. He had Kurt Warner. He's had all these different quarterbacks throwing to him, and yet he has been a Hall of Famer, no doubt, maybe first ballot. So the biggest thing, if Antonio Brown, in fact, does get traded, is will he be able to catch the ball as effectively as he did with Big Ben throwing the ball to him with a different quarterback? That's going to be the major thing for him. Can he be a Larry Fitzgerald where he can catch balls at a high rate and get a lot of yards and a lot of receptions and all that with maybe a middle of the line, bad quarterback, good quarterback, whatever it is? Can he succeed with the different quarterback throwing to him? Now, the Steelers, if they were to trade Antonio Brown, you could probably get draft picks. You could get some players for him. Really, it just all depends on what Pittsburgh is looking for. You could get draft picks. You can get so much stuff for Antonio Brown because he is an insane receiver. Definitely one of the best receivers of the decade. And, we're just going to wait and see on Antonio Brown. We're going to have to wait to see on what happens with that situation. But if he is traded, expect the Steelers to get a boatload back in exchange for him. And now we're going to move on. Oh, actually, no. We're not going to move on to the NBA yet. And I'm going to do a recap of this Chiefs and Steelers game. I think the game is actually over, if I am correct. And I think the Chiefs did win this game. And honestly, the Chiefs, they looked incredible. They looked phenomenal in this game. They looked phenomenal. And if we go ahead and take a look in the NFL, the Chiefs won by a score of 31-13 against the Colts. The Chiefs, they looked incredible in this game. Their defense was amazing. They actually had a good defense. And the Colts they did not play good. Like, yes, they put up 13 points. One of them was on a blocked punt that went for a touchdown. And another one was a T.Y. Hilton pass for a touchdown. T.Y. Hilton, by the way, is incredible. And the Chiefs end up winning this game, though, 31-13. Really, the biggest thing for me that stood out was how good the Chiefs defense held up, because the Chiefs defense has been kind of a problem for me and not taking them. The Chiefs defense has been a big problem for me. And a good example of this, they lost 50, I believe the score was 54-50 against the Rams. They allowed 54 points, which is insane. And then I believe to the Raiders, they gave up 30 points. So that really was kind of a red flag for me. But the Chiefs actually held up well on defense, which is something that I didn't expect to see from them. But they only held the Colts to 13 points. And Luck had 203 yards with 1 touchdown. And then Marlon Mack had 46 yards on 9 carries and no touchdowns, no rushing touchdowns for Indianapolis. T.Y. Hilton had 4 receptions, 60 yards, and a touchdown. And then this guy, Inman, had 4 receptions for 55 yards. And then Ebron had 5 receptions for 51 yards. So they allowed 200 receiving yards. Then on the other end, though, the Colts absolutely dominated. Patrick Mahomes had 278 yards, no touchdowns. But the rushing did a lot of the work. This guy, Williams, their running back, after they got rid of Kareem Hunt, he had 25 carries, 129 yards, and a touchdown with a long of 24. Tyreek Hill had a rushing touchdown, 36 yards. Then we had another touchdown, I believe, from Williams. Let me take a look here. I don't know if this is the same Williams. It's Darrell Williams. And then this one is Damian. So Darrell Williams had 3 carries, 9 yards, and a touchdown. Then Patrick Mahomes had a rushing touchdown of his own. By the way, on the subject of Patrick Mahomes, this kid is... I don't know what to say about this kid anymore. He's throwing no-look passes. He is escaping sacks. Like, the kid has everything. He has a strong arm. He's mobile. He can throw the ball at an effective rate. The kid is insane. He plays with a confidence that I have never seen before. He plays with his confidence is like through the roof. I mean, and when you think about when the Chiefs got him, the Chiefs traded up from a low first-round draft pick all the way up to the 10th pick in the draft to select Patrick Mahomes. I thought that was one of the craziest trades I probably have ever seen. That was a crazy trade to get Patrick Mahomes. That was a pretty crazy trade, if I'm honest, because we did not know what to expect from Patrick Mahomes. We didn't think he'd turn out this way, definitely this season. But the things that Mahomes has done this season, it's blown my mind, his rise to stardom. He was second in passing yards, first in touchdowns, and he was tied for 20th in interceptions. He had 50 touchdowns to 12 interceptions and 5,000 yards. This is a second-year player. I still would call him a rookie because he only played one game in 2017, in the 2017-18 season. But still, the guy, he just tore it up in the NFL this season. Good job for him. I mean, if I'm honest, you know, the guy is just, he's such a great talent right now. The Chiefs did a great job trading up for this guy. He is just a sensational talent. He's going to be there for the Chiefs for a long time. And honestly, I don't know. The guy's insane, okay? The guy's insane. He plays with confidence that I've truly never seen before out of a quarterback. Not only that, though, I mean, he has the stats to back it up, man. He plays with such a confidence, and it's incredible what this kid can do. Hopefully, he'll be there for the Chiefs in a couple of years, and if he keeps going at this pace, we could see him as a Hall of Famer when his career is over. So definitely, I mean, he's only 23 as well, which is pretty insane to think about. He is only 23 years of age. So, anyway, back to the game. By the way, Mahomes had an 81.7 QBR. But, I mean, looking at it, there were 4 rushing touchdowns for Kansas City. Then on receiving, there were no touchdowns, but Travis Kelce had 7 receptions for 108 yards and no touchdowns. Tyreek Hill had 8 for 72. Then Sammy Watkins had 6 receptions for 62 yards. And then, I mean, just the fumbles as well. They only lost 1 fumble, Kansas City, and that was Sammy Watkins. But then they had 3 recoveries, which Justin Houston recovered a fumble. Then it was Tremont Smith, the cornerback, I believe. And then on the defense, Anthony Hitchens, I mean, they rallied up 47 total tackles, and then 32 of them were solo. They had 3 sacks and 4 tackles for losses. I mean, if there was any doubt that the Kansas City defense can hold their own, they completely smashed it out of the water based on how good they were against the Colts. I mean, honestly, I had doubts against the defense, but now I think those doubts have been wiped away based on what they've done in this game. They have proved themselves. Honestly, I said this during the game. This team, they have no weaknesses. On both sides of the ball, they're dominant. On both sides of the ball. They have playmakers on both sides of the ball. You know, on offense, you got Patrick Mahomes, you got Travis Kelce, you got Sammy Watkins, you got Tyreek Hill. But then on defense, you got guys like Anthony Hitchens, you got Justin Houston, you got Steven Nelson, who's had a pretty good season. And, I mean, honestly, this has definitely erased any doubt that I had, and hopefully Kansas City, I don't know who they're going on to play, actually. I think it will be the Saints, if I'm correct. No, not the Saints. That's so bad. It's either going to be the Patriots or the Chargers, so that game will be a barn burner. And, yeah. Now, actually, moving on, we're going to be having predictions. So, right now, currently, as I'm doing this podcast, we do have the Rams taking on the Cowboys. The Rams are up 3-0 with 7 minutes left in the first quarter. For this game, I think LA was favored at 7 under. And then for LA, I'm going to say they're going on to the NFC Championship. They have a dominant team. Now, yes, the Dallas Cowboys were really good, but the Rams have such a high-powered offense, and they have a lot of great players on defense that it's hard to stop. So, honestly, I'm taking the Rams in this game. Next is going to be a really hard game for me to pick. It's going to be the Patriots and the Chargers. Now, I'm a Patriots fan, but I don't know, man. I can't make a pick right now because Hunter Henry for the Chargers just came off of the IR, I believe. They just reinstated him, so he is going to play against the Pats. That's another target for Phillip Rivers to have. And honestly, the Chargers last week against the Ravens, they were able to shut down and beat the Ravens. I mean, they were able to beat the Ravens, and the Ravens had an incredible offense. Now, yes, they did allow 17 points, but they still did incredible against the Ravens. They did incredible, honestly. The Chargers, I mean, they did hold Lamar Jackson to only 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And honestly, for me, and no rushing touchdowns too. Rushing has been one of the biggest, if not the biggest thing for the biggest thing for the Ravens. Their rushing attack has been absolutely insane, and LA was able to limit that, and that really showed a lot to me. And I can't really make a pick as well. I mean, the Patriots do have a lot of good players. While they have, obviously Brady, they have Gronk, they have Edelman. I mean, the loss of Josh Gordon definitely hurts this team. If they had Josh Gordon, it could be a different story for me. Honestly, though, I can't make a pick. It's too close for me, and that's it. And then moving on to the final game, Eagles and Saints. I'm going to take the Saints here. The Eagles, I mean, yes, they have a really good offense and defense, but the only reason they're there is because Parkey missed a field goal. That's the only reason they're there. Honestly, the Saints, they've been playing great all season. Drew Brees has been playing to a very high caliber, and also the defense has really stepped up too with playmakers such as Marshawn Lattimore on the defense. So I'm taking the Saints in this one, and I can't really predict a score. So that's it for the NFL, really. Now moving on to the NBA. So in the NBA, one of the biggest storylines, or one of the biggest headlines today, was that Nick Collison, yes, the guy Nick Collison, who spent his entire career with the Oklahoma City Thunder / Seattle Supersonics, is going to get his number retired, number 4, by the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is the first number retired by Oklahoma City since the move. So this is a big accomplishment for Nick Collison. He spent his whole career with the Oklahoma City Thunder / Supersonics, being drafted in 2003 out of Kansas by the Supersonics. And yeah, I mean, the ceremony, he was selected 12th overall in 2003, and the ceremony is going to be March 20th. Now, the Supersonics, even though OKC Thunder don't have any numbers retired, the Supersonics actually have 6 numbers retired. And those are Jack Sikma, Nate McMillan, Lenny Wilkins, Spencer Haywood, Fred Brown, and Gus Williams. All those numbers have been retired by the Seattle Supersonics. And, you know what, good for Nick Collison. He's the definition of loyalty. If you were to look in a dictionary and look up the word loyalty, you would see a picture of Nick Collison's face on there. And honestly, good for Nick Collison. He was loyal, and now he is going to be the first number retired by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Congratulations to him. And just a good career overall, Nick. And just congratulations. Now, the next headline we had, JJ Barea suffered a torn Achilles last night in a win. I believe it was a win against Minnesota. Now, this year he has averaged 10.9 points, 5.6 assists, and 19 minutes per game. And it's just going to be a loss of depth for the Mavericks. And they've actually been playing pretty solid, especially Luka Doncic. Great. That was actually a really good trade for the Mavericks to trade away Trae Young for Doncic. And I think it was just a good trade overall. And it just made me feel good about what the Mavericks were doing. And they're going to center all of their things now, all their players around Doncic to try to make him happy. And the guy's going to have a career in the NBA. He knows what he's doing. There was some doubt because he's an international player. We don't really know a lot about international players sometimes. But Doncic has been incredible, possibly an all-star in his first season, so he definitely has a bright future. And back to JJ Barea. So with the torn Achilles, now they lose some depth at the point guard position. Behind him, they do have Jalen Brunson. So yeah, that is pretty much it for that. Then, I believe last night as well, Stephen Curry did pass Jason Terry for 3rd on the all-time three-point careers, for the career three-point made list. And now he's only behind Reggie Miller and Ray Allen. Reggie Miller the Pacers legend. And then Ray Allen was a Miami Heat / Boston Celtic legend. And, by the way, I love Ray Allen, man. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm wearing a Heat jersey right now, so thank you for making the shot in the finals. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And, yeah, by the way, congrats on the Hall of Fame as well. Anyway, though, moving on, he did make his 2,283rd three made in the win against the Bulls. I believe the score was like 140 to 109. And that was on assist. That was on an assist by Draymond Green, and he does pass Jason Terry, so now he's third on the all-time three-point scorers list. And I think Curry, at the rate that he's going right now, if he does this for a lot more seasons, he does have the potential to become number one. Because Ray Allen, I believe, has 3,700, somewhere around that, and there's still a couple months left in the season, so Curry could make it to 3,300, maybe 3,350 by the end of the season. By the end of the season. Then looking at it, he's only 30 years old, so he might have a good 5 or 6 years left in the NBA. So he could possibly become the career 3-point made leader. He could become that. So that's definitely something for Stephen Curry. I like Stephen Curry. He's a good guy. He's one of the players that the Warriors have had since the bad days. He's been one of those players to the Warriors. He's been loyal, and I don't think he'll ever leave the Warriors. Now, I don't know about Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson. I think they're going to be leaving in the offseason. But Curry, honestly, he was part of the 2015 Warriors who built their team the right way through drafting, but then they signed Kevin Durant, and it basically tainted the Warriors, and now they have a dynasty. However, though, I think once Durant leaves and if Draymond and if Klay Thompson leaves, it could possibly, we could see the Warriors not become a dynasty. We could see the Warriors dynasty end, because really all that would be left is Curry and Draymond Green. And then, not to even mention, you do have DeMarcus Cousins. I believe he'll be leaving after the season. I believe he was only signed to a 1-year deal. And he's going to be coming back actually very, very soon, maybe in a week or so. So we're going to be seeing DeMarcus Cousins in a Warriors uniform. Expect him to get booed out of the freaking building because of what he did. He basically made the Warriors super team. A big, bad super team. He's like the big, bad wolf. And then you got the three little pigs. You got the three little pigs, in my opinion. You got the Western Conference. We'll do So the three little picks for the Western Conference. So running away, you got the Lakers, you got the Rockets, and then in the East, you got teams like the Celtics and the 76ers and all that, and the Raptors and the Bucks. So those are basically the three little pigs running away from the Golden State Warriors. But Golden State's going to blow the house down, and they're probably going to win another title this year unless a miracle emerges and somehow we get either a big comeback or just an absolute domination of the Warriors. And we see the Warriors dynasty, well, not the dynasty, but the title streak end. So, yeah. And that's pretty much it. Steph Curry, congratulations once again. And I'm predicting by the end of his career, by the end of Steph Curry's NBA career, he will be first in the career 3-point made list. He will be first, mark my words. Next, we have MLB news. Now we're moving on into the baseball. The first piece of news I have is the Padres actually moved Will Myers from third base to the outfield. So now the outfield is going to be Will Myers, Manuel Margot, and Hunter Renfroe. And then I believe there's a guy replacing him. His name is Ty France. And he had a 2.67 average, 355 on base percentage, 22 home runs, and 96 RBIs in the minors. And honestly, the Padres, they have an incredible farm system, so I'm not too worried about their future. Their future is going to be definitely very bright. And that's pretty much all I have to say, but Will Myers is now moving out to the outfield, so more depth in the outfield once again. And just a little bit more power in the outfield now with Will Myers and a little less power in the infield. But, this is not, excluding what they're going to do in free agency. Next, there was actually some huge news yesterday in terms of arbitration. Jacob deGrom and the Mets did agree on a 1-year, $17 million contract, and it was actually the record raise for arbitration and arbitration-eligible player, and it was $7.4 million until Friday, and the record was actually, originally the record was only hours before when the Red Sox and AL MVP Mookie Betts agreed on a raise, and Jacob deGrom set the new record, so now he's going to be staying with the Mets for another year. And then Betts got bumped up to $9.5 million, from who got bumped a $9.5 million salary. Now he's up to $20 million for 2019. And actually, an interesting stat is that 2 raises like that have not happened in the same day ever. So that's a pretty big statistic. And also, the Mets ended up reaching deals with Noah Syndergaard, Zach Wheeler, Steven Matz, Michael Conforto, and Travis d'Arnaud. And actually, Noah Syndergaard did have his salary doubled. So, I think it's pretty cool. You know, the Mets are keeping their guys. Honestly, they made a lot of great trades and a lot of great signings. Like, they just signed Jed Lowry. They signed Wilson Ramos. I really, really like those guys, and I like this GM. This GM is making moves. He's making moves. He's trying to make the team better. He's not being conservative like the previous GMs have, and I really like what Brodie Van Wagenen is doing with the Mets as the GM. He's actually making moves. I mean, the Cano and Diaz trade was huge because they got another infielder in Cano who's more of a contact hitter, and in that ballpark, you know, doubles and triples are huge. So Cano is a double and triple guy. Now, yes, he did use PEDs last year, but the guy has been pretty good. Now, honestly, he does have a salary as well, but he's still going to be a great infielder for the Mets. Now they got Jed Lowry as well, who's another switch hitter and a second baseman, so that will be a good addition. And they got Edwin Diaz to kind of bolster the bullpen, and they got Wilson Ramos, who's a pretty good player. He had I think a breakout season. Well, not a breakout season, but he basically came back to life with the Rays last year. So, definitely really, really good. And honestly, I like the way the GM is doing things. He's going out, he's being aggressive, and that's what you need to be in free agency and also in the trade market. You really need to be aggressive, and that's what Brodie Van Wagenen is doing. And honestly, I like it. Keep doing it. The Mets just keep doing it, and you guys will be in a very good spot in the next couple of years. So, and that's pretty much it. Now, wrapping up the story, Jacob deGrom, I mean, another topic about Jacob deGrom, and I've heard this from a couple people. Imagine the stuff you could get if you do trade Jacob deGrom, because he is 30 years old. You have Noah Syndergaard, and honestly, you have one of the best starting rotations in baseball. And, you know, you could get some great prospects for Jacob deGrom. You could get some great players. And honestly, Jacob deGrom, he would be a stud. I mean, he's a stud on any team. And if the Mets were really looking to explore options for Jacob deGrom, they could get a lot out of him, because deGrom, I mean, he had like a 1.7 ERA or something like that. Like one of the lowest ERAs, I think maybe even the lowest in the MLB. He had an amazing season last year. He's been really, really good for the Mets. And I just like Jacob deGrom. He's a great pitcher. He knows what he's doing. And honestly, if the Mets were exploring options to trade him, they could get a long haul. They can get, you know, probably a couple A-level prospects, you know, a couple high prospects, or maybe even some great players, you know. And you can get some great players in the outfield. I think they signed somebody. Oh, yeah, they did actually. Well, they didn't sign him. They got Keon Broxton in a trade a couple days ago, and that bolsters the outfield a bit. And they do have Juan Lagares in center field, so what they could do is they could split time between Juan Lagares and, who is, by the way, coming back after, I believe, a torn ACL, if I'm correct. So it'll be Juan Lagares and Keon Broxton in center field. They could split the time between them. Maybe have Broxton play half the time and then have Lagares make up the other time as a defensive substitution. Because Lagares, I mean, he's average with the bat, but he really does his damage on the defense. And Keon Broxton, I mean, he's more of a speed guy, so definitely something great to, you know, bolster the outfield. And then, you know, you got the bullpen. You got Edwin Diaz, who's a top closer. in baseball right now. Just the season he had last year was incredible. So he's one of the top closers, if not the top closer in baseball right now. And that was a big pickup for the Mets. They were able to bolster their bullpen, and they still got Gesellman and Lugo in that bullpen, and they've shown to be pretty good. So looking forward for the Mets, they're going to have a pretty good season because of the trades and the signings they made. And remember, we're only in January. We still got 2 or 3 more months left until the start of the regular season once again. So definitely look for the Mets to make more moves and then possibly make a push at the NL East title. And actually, speaking of the NL East, the Nationals also did end up signing Brian Dozier to a contract. And it was reported also that Bryce Harper got made another offer by the Nationals. It was like $320 or $330 million. And I think the Nationals are now showing Bryce Harper that they can get talent on their teams, such as, Brian Dozier, bolstering the team and basically helping, paving the way for Bryce Harper to come back to Washington. Now, Bryce Harper, it's actually pretty interesting. He could go to the Yankees, which I don't think would happen because they're actually now out of the Manny Machado race. It's down to the White Sox and the Phillies. And you got Bryce Harper. He could go back to Washington. Anthony Rendon is a stud. Then you also got Max Scherzer and Steven Strasburg in the rotation. And they actually, I believe I saw something on MLB Network. They have one of, if not, they have one of the best starting rotations in baseball right now. So it could be really, really good. They also got Patrick Corbin too. So they are bolstering their team. They're trying to pave way, essentially, for Bryce Harper to come back to Washington. And if they could make the playoffs, I think with the lesser team, I think they didn't have this good of a team. If they could get Bryce Harper back, it'd definitely be really good because now you would have Juan Soto, who's a prodigy. The kid's going to be incredible. And you'd also have Bryce Harper in that outfield. That's a pretty lethal combo. Juan Soto proved himself last year, so could be very interesting if Bryce Harper chooses to go back to the Nationals, and then, you never really know from there. So, could be very, very interesting. And we also had another trade go down. Speaking of trades, Russell Martin from the Blue Jays got dealed to the Dodgers in exchange for 2 minor league prospects, Ronnie Brito and Sopko, I believe. And Brito had a .295 average, 11 home runs, 55 RBIs, a .359 on base percentage, and an .855 OPS in 61 games played in the minors, while Sopko had a 3.52 ERA, a 5.45 win-loss percentage, 121 strikeouts, and 27 walks, and a 6-5 record in the minors. And these guys are both young. Ronnie Brito is 19 years old, and Sopko is 24. And for the Blue Jays last year, Russell Martin did have a .194 batting average with 10 home runs, 25 RBIs, a .338 on-base percentage, and a 663 on-base plus slugging in 289 at-bats. And I believe his salary this year is going to be $20 million because he had a contract spanning from 2015 all the way up to 2019. I believe he was he got paid $15 million, then moved up to $20 million. So, yeah, what's going on, Rockstar? Welcome to the TBT Sportscast. We're basically talking MLB. I'm not going to be streaming TBTWF because I can't commentate right now. I have a sore throat, so I can't commentate. I'm sorry about that. I will get back onto it next weekend, hopefully. But anyway, moving on. Yeah, so, I think this is a decent trade for the Dodgers. They are getting a catcher in Russell Martin, and I believe, and they just lost Yasmani Grandal, which we will talk about that later, to the Brewers. So, and then they got Austin Barnes back as well. So, it could be very interesting. Russell Martin coming back to Los Angeles, and hopefully Russell Martin can reignite the spark he had in LA before he got traded, or he signed with the Blue Jays. So, maybe he can recapture that spark, but for right now, I don't see it. But, it's a decent pickup for the Dodgers. They are giving away 2 prospects, and we don't know what those prospects can do. So, really have to wait and see on that. Next, actually, this is perfect. Next was the Brewers. They ended up signing Yasmani Grandal to a 1-year, $18 million contract in 2019. They did just sign him. Now, they did have to stretch the budget a bit, but they ended up signing him, and it was actually reported that the Mets had given him a 4-year deal that was somewhere close to $60 million. So Yasmani Grandal took the 1-year deal where he's guaranteed $18 million in 2019, and it definitely bolsters the infield for the Brewers because now their infield is Grandal playing catcher, Aguilar at first base. They got Corey Spangenberg at second base, Orlando Arcia playing shortstop, and Travis Shaw playing the third base position. And looking at it here, and Grandal took a lesser deal. He was going to if he went to the Mets, that would actually be pretty cool. But I mean, it was 4 years, 4-year deal worth close to $60 million. But he took the deal from the Brewers. He's gonna be going to the Brewers. Honestly, Yasmani Grandal, he had a couple of good moments in this 2018 season, and I mean, he was a defensive liability with the Dodgers in the playoffs, but still, I mean, the guy is really good. He's a switch hitting catcher, which is like a dime a dozen now, because most catchers are usually righties, but he is a switch hitting catcher, so that's pretty huge. And, yeah, overall, I think this is a decent pickup for the Brewers. They're definitely bolstering their infield behind the plate. The biggest thing they need to do, though, definitely is to improve their starting rotation, because if they can do that, they would be one of the most complete teams in baseball, and they could make a World Series run. I mean, they did make it to the NLCS, and that's pretty much it. Honestly, if the Brewers do want to contend this season, they must pick up a starting rotation guy. They must pick up somebody for the starting rotation. If not, it can turn into a crap show, and they won't make it far in the playoffs if they don't have the pitching, but you never really you never really know. So that is it. And then moving on to our last story, it's going to be the Red Sox and Mookie Betts. They did agree on a $20 million salary for 2019, and the Betts deal does set a new standard for players that have 4 or more years in MLB experience, so that's actually pretty cool. That basically sets the standard. He got a big pay raise, as I mentioned when I was talking about the Mets and Jacob deGrom. He got a big pay raise, and he actually set the record until Jacob deGrom broke it a few hours later. But it basically sets a new precedent, and Mookie Betts did get a big bump in terms of he got a big pay raise. Then he actually led the American League in batting average, runs, and a slugging percentage. He led the American League and all that. So, I mean, pretty solid. and almost doubled the salary for Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is definitely a great player in terms of just what he can do. He has power, he has speed, he can field. He's a complete outfielder. He's the complete guy you would want out of the outfield. So, pretty good for Mookie Betts. I'd say this is good for the Red Sox. They do sign Mookie Betts, and I believe he actually went through arbitration last year, so that is pretty cool. Moving on now to the last story, and it is the Yankees. They do sign DJ LeMahieu to a 2-year, $24 million deal, I believe it was. And let's see, did DJ LeMahieu, 2 years, $24 million. And they are basically out of Machado sweepstakes, so they go ahead, the Yankees do bolster their infield in signing a pretty good contact hitter and one of the best defensive players in the infield in terms of DJ LeMahieu. They do lure him away for the Rockies for a $12 million a year salary. And last season, he batted .276 with 15 home runs, 62 RBIs, 90 runs, and 6 stolen bases. And he actually joins Troy Tulowitzki as the infielders that have been signed by the Yankees this season, considering that the Yankees are probably not getting Manny Machado, or it could be something to just throw us off. It could be very, very interesting. And obviously, you got Didi Gregorius. He's going to be out until probably mid-2018 or 2019 season because I believe he had Tommy John surgery. So they did get DJ LeMahieu, and now that the infield is bolstered now with the pickup of DJ LeMahieu, now the Yankees infield, they do have Luke Voit playing first base. At second base, they have Gleyber Torres. At shortstop, they'll have Troy Tulowitzki until They'll have Troy Tulowitzki until Didi Gregorius returns. They have Andujar playing third base. Then they have Gary Sanchez playing catcher. So they might switch the time, or they might split the time up between Gleyber Torres and DJ LeMahieu, but for right now it stands as Gleyber Torres is their starting second baseman. And, yeah, that is pretty much it. And there's also one more thing I have to talk about for MLB news in terms of if Machado decides to go to the White Sox. Now, the White Sox, they actually did make a signing. They signed Kelvin Herrera to a 2-year deal, I believe, and they did bolster their bullpen pitching. So it could be very interesting if Machado does choose to join the Chicago White Sox. That would be a very interesting deal because it would definitely make the White Sox a whole lot better. And if the White Sox were able to get Manny Machado, it would take their team over the top because, you know, they got young prospects in terms of they have like Michael Kopech, they have Juan Moncada, they have Carlos Rondon. They have a lot of young talent on that team. It's actually, I think, one of the best farm systems in baseball. So looking at it, Machado would just take that team over the top. That would make it probably a contender if they can make a few more moves in the offseason. Definitely could be a contender. And that's pretty much all I got to say about that. Anyway, guys, hope you have enjoyed. This is episode 1 of the first TBT Sportscast. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Have a great rest of your weekend. And I will see you guys